I never held my father's hand, not once, not as a child, not as a man. And I never understood why until I saw them for the last time. You ever notice how some people say everything without saying a word? How love doesn't always sound like, "I love you"? How sometimes the most important conversations happen in complete silence. I'm Midnight Leon, and tonight I want to tell you about my father's hands, because those hands told me everything I needed to know. I just wasn't listening. Stay with me. This isn't easy to talk about, but maybe you need to hear it. Maybe there's still time for you. My father was a quiet man, not cold, not distant, just quiet. He didn't hug much, didn't say "I love you" the way you see in movies, didn't sit us down for heart-to-heart talks, but his hands never stopped talking. Did you ever know someone like that? Someone whose whole life was written in their body, in the way they moved, in what they built? My father's hands were working-class hands, dark brown skin, thick calluses across the palms, scars running up the fingers like little rivers telling stories he'd never speak out loud. I remember being 7, maybe 8 years old, sitting on the back porch watching him fix the lawnmower. It was a Saturday afternoon, hot, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer. He had the mower flipped over, parts spread out on an old towel, grease smeared up to his elbows. Those big hands moving so careful, so precise, like a surgeon. Picking up tiny screws, threading bolts, tightening things I couldn't even see. "Can you fix it, Daddy?" He didn't look up, just nodded, kept working. And he did fix it. He always did. Those hands could fix anything. Broken fence? Fixed. Leaky faucet? Fixed. Car making a strange noise? Fixed. My bicycle chain that kept falling off? Fixed. He never called a repairman, never paid someone else to do what his hands could do. I used to think it was about money. We didn't have much. Working class, black family in the 1970s. My father worked the line at the factory, 40 hours a week, sometimes more. But it wasn't just about money. It was about what those hands meant to him. They were his language, his way of saying, "I've got you. I'll keep this family together. I'll keep things running." Every nail he hammered, every pipe he fixed, every meal he provided, that was him saying, "I love you. I just didn't know how to hear it yet." When I was 14, something changed. I don't know exactly when it started, but I started noticing my father's hands more. Not because I suddenly appreciated them, but because they started to look different, older. The calluses were deeper, the scars more pronounced. And there was something else, a slight tremor, just barely noticeable, like his hands were tired. But he kept working. He'd come home from the factory, eat dinner in near silence, then head to the garage. There was always something to fix, always something that needed his attention. I was a teenager, self-absorbed, thinking about girls, about music, about getting out of this neighborhood someday. I didn't ask him if he was okay, didn't ask if his hands hurt, didn't ask if he was tired. I just assumed he'd always be there, always fixing things, always strong. You ever take someone for granted like that? Just assume they're unbreakable because they never complain? One night I was doing homework at the kitchen table, late, maybe 10, 11 o'clock. My father came in from the garage, washed his hands at the sink. I glanced up and saw him struggling with the faucet. His fingers weren't gripping right. He had to use both hands to turn it off. "You okay, Dad?" "I'm fine." 2 words, that was it. And I went back to my homework. I didn't push, didn't ask more, because that's how we were. That's how he was. You didn't pry, you didn't make him talk about things he didn't want to talk about. But looking back now, I wonder, was he protecting me? Or was he protecting himself? Because there was something he wasn't saying. Something those hands were trying to tell me, and I wasn't listening. Years went by. I graduated high school, got a job, moved across town into a little apartment. started my own life. I'd visit on Sundays, family dinners. My mother would cook, and we'd all sit around that same kitchen table. My father still didn't talk much, but he'd always ask, "How's work? You need anything fixed at your place?" I'd say, "No, Dad, I'm good." But honestly, I wasn't good at fixing things, not like him. I'd call a plumber, pay someone, because I didn't have the patience, didn't have the skill, didn't have his hands. One Sunday, I noticed something. We were sitting at the table after dinner. My father had his hands folded in front of him, and I saw them shake. Not a little, a lot. "Dad?" "It's nothing," he said, before I could finish. "Just getting old." But it wasn't nothing. His hands were trembling. Those strong, steady hands that had built fences and fixed engines and held our family together. They were shaking like leaves in the wind. And I saw something else. Something in his eyes. A flicker. Fear? Sadness? I don't know. He excused himself, got up from the table, walked outside to the porch. I followed him. "Dad, what's going on?" He stood there, looking out at the yard, at the garden he'd planted, at the fence he'd built. "Just tired, son, that's all." And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to say, "Okay," and go back inside, because it was easier, because acknowledging that something was wrong meant facing something I wasn't ready to face. But I didn't go back inside. I stood there next to him, silent. Two men who didn't know how to talk to each other. Two men who communicated through action, not words. And finally, he said it. "My hands don't work like they used to." 5 words, that's all he gave me, but in those 5 words I heard everything. I heard fear, I heard exhaustion, I heard a lifetime of carrying weight he never put down. "We'll figure it out," I said, and he just nodded. The next few years were hard. My father's condition got worse. The doctors had a name for it, something medical, something I can't even remember now because it doesn't matter what it was called. What mattered was what it took from him. His hands. The tremors became constant. He couldn't grip things anymore, couldn't hold tools, couldn't fix things. And I watched him shrink, not physically, but inside. I watched the light in his eyes dim. I watched him sit in his garage, staring at tools he could no longer use. I watched him try to turn a screwdriver and drop it. Try again, drop it again, and then stop trying. Do you know what it's like to watch someone lose the one thing that defined them? My father wasn't a talker. He wasn't a hugger. He wasn't the kind of dad who played catch or took you fishing, but he was a fixer, a builder, a man whose hands spoke for him. And when those hands stopped working, he didn't know who he was anymore. I tried to help. I'd come over on weekends, fix the things he couldn't. But it wasn't the same, because it wasn't him. And every time I picked up a tool, I saw him watching, saw the sadness in his face. "You're doing good, son," he'd say. But I wasn't. I was just doing what he should have been doing, and we both knew it. One Saturday, I was replacing a broken board on the back porch. My father sat in his chair watching. I hammered in a nail, missed, hit my thumb. "Damn it!" My father smiled. Just a little. "You gotta hold the hammer loose," he said. "Let it do the work, don't force it." And for a moment, he was teaching me like he used to. "Show me," I said. He looked at his hands, at the way they trembled, at the way they betrayed him. "I can't," he said quietly. And my heart broke. My father passed away on a Tuesday morning. Quietly, in his sleep, the way he lived. I got the call at work, dropped everything, drove to my mother's house. And when I walked into that bedroom and saw him lying there, the first thing I noticed was his hands. They were still. For the first time in years, they weren't shaking. They were folded across his chest, calm, peaceful. And I stood there, looking at those hands, and everything hit me at once. Those hands had built the porch I played on as a kid. Those hands had fixed my bike so I could ride to school. Those hands had worked 40 years in a factory so I could go to college. Those hands had never hit me, never hurt me, only built, only provided, only loved. And I had never told him I saw it, never told him I understood, never held those hands and said, "Thank you." I reached out, touched his hand. It was cold, but I held it anyway. "I'm sorry, Dad," I whispered. "I should have said it. I should have told you." And I cried. I cried for all the conversations we never had, for all the times I didn't listen, for all the ways I took him for granted. But most of all, I cried because I finally understood. Love doesn't always sound like "I love you." Sometimes it sounds like "I fixed the sink." Sometimes it sounds like "I'll take care of it." Sometimes it sounds like silence and work and sacrifice and hands that never stop moving, even when they hurt, even when they shake, even when they're tired. Those hands were his voice, and I finally heard him. I'm 63 years old now, and I think about my father's hands every single day. I think about the lessons they taught me, the sacrifices they made, the love they gave without ever asking for recognition. And I wish, God, I wish, I had held them more, thanked them more, told him I saw what he was doing, but I can't. All I can do now is tell you, if your father is still here, go see him. Hold his hand. Thank him. Even if he's not the hugging type, even if he doesn't say much, tell him you see him. Tell him you understand. Because one day, his hands will be still, and you'll wish you had said it. Trust me on that. I'm Midnight Leon. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. Next time on Golden Days Radio, I'm going to tell you about the phone call that never came, about waiting by that avocado green phone for 3 hours, about my friend Marvin, and about what happens when someone you trust just disappears. Until then, keep the lights low and the memories warm. This is your night companion, signing off. Good night, my friend. Bye.